So I was sitting at my desk in late 2007 and I got an email alert from the system this particular company was using. I was working for a marketing agency doing some interim work, and this email alert basically told me that one of my customers had a problem. They were disappointed, they were unhappy in some way, and I was surprised. I'd actually spoken to this person a couple of days previous. So because we had a service level in place within this particular company, it was my job to pick up the phone within an hour of this alert coming through and to call him up. And I did. And I said, "Hi, it's Mark. What's the situation? You were happy as anything a couple of days ago. What's the problem?" And he said to me, "Oh, you've just invited a whole bunch of my colleagues to this particular event, but you didn't invite me. What's going on?" I said, "Well, no problem." And within minutes, we'd fixed the problem. We had a happy customer. And I had an epiphany at that moment. And I suddenly realized the power of churn, the power of keeping a happy customer, and also the power of really trying to understand what a customer is thinking before things get really, really out of hand. And that is what this presentation is all about. It's about how to stop your customers from leaving you, because churn is not a sexy word, okay? It's not what most people go to work worrying about, but it really, really matters. People are more interested generally in worrying about what's coming in at the top of the funnel, the big deal, the big contract, the exciting, the interesting stuff. But actually, as we'll see in a moment, the keeping hold of what you already have, that existing customer base, is so, so important. So let's just see what it means then for a business. There's a very quick example. A business with 400 customers, which is turning over £100 a month. $100, it really doesn't matter. All the numbers are relative. And what we have here is we have a 5%, 10% and 20% churn rate in terms of the number of customers on that y-axis. And what you'll see is by the end of the year, after 20% churn, you actually will lose over 50% of your customer base. And if we turn that into some real numbers, £480,000 would be the margin, revenue, doesn't matter what the number is, across the year. But actually, you can see the huge impact that 5% churn, just losing 20 of those customers per month, can have on the overall bottom line or top line, depending on which way you look at it. And if you're unfortunate enough to lose 20% of customers every month, then the numbers get pretty bad. When I was putting together this presentation, just here in the UK, just realised just how many enormous household brands are no longer with us over the last few years. Brands who are well established with thousands, hundreds of thousands of customers. And really, if you drill down to what's going on with I suspect pretty much all of those brands, it's not down to complex management and restructuring and finance and the rest of it. The long and short of it is they lost their customers for whatever reason. Those customers didn't keep coming back, they didn't keep spending, and as a result, those brands you see there are no longer with us. So this presentation is going to be mainly around 10 really quite practical areas where we can give you some advice on how to keep your customers. Things that you can actually go away and implement straight away, or just start those conversations within your organization. Sure, there's some customer thermometer references throughout this. It's not meant to be a sales pitch in any way, shape or form. However, so much of what we've learned over the last few years is just inbred into what we do now, and it comes out all over the place in terms of keeping hold of customers. So there are some unashamed references to what we're doing here at Customer Thermometer, but also some very general ideas as well, which hopefully you'll be able to pick up on. So before we get into that, let me just show you a study from a few years back now from the Rockefeller Corporation on why will a customer leave you. And if you look closely, there is no mention whatsoever of price or quality, for that matter, or, product. And the numbers you're looking at there, they are all to do with a specific set of customers who have left a supplier and they've moved to another. They've not just not needed the product anymore, the service. They've physically upped sticks and moved, voting with their feet to somebody else. And obviously the top one's pretty sad, and there's not an awful lot we can do about that. But if we just focus in on that bottom number, that 68%, I'm going to come back to that on a couple of occasions in this presentation, that really the customer believes you don't care about them. They believe that you are indifferent towards them. Okay, so even though you may think as an organization you are doing everything in your power to communicate and to understand what your customers are thinking and what they're doing, as far as the customer is concerned, you are not. And as a result of that, they are voting with their feet and leaving with you. So I've got 10 little topics to cover, some longer than others, some very quick, and I'm going to run through them right now. So number one, how to stop your customers from leaving you. The first one, make a customer, not a sale. And there's two angles to this which I'd like to cover. So the first one is, we see this a lot in all walks of life, where salespeople are incentivized to obviously win business, and quite often that results in round pegs fitting in square holes. So much persuasion, so much massaging of a customer to try and get them to buy a particular product or service, when actually in 2 or 3 or 4 months or weeks time that customer walks away because the fit isn't right. Okay, it's not win-win. And I think that's a really important point. Some customers are just going to walk away if the deal is not right for them at the beginning. Even if they're persuaded it's a good thing, they will eventually just vote with their feet. And the key thing for me here is, yes, the salesperson may have made their quota, but actually the cost of that sale and the length that customer stays with you, is it really worth it? Are salespeople not better off being incentivized to find that real win-win as opposed to trying to fit round pegs in square holes? That's the first thing I would say about that. The second thing I want to say about that is something I've experienced personally of late. We read a lot around this subject, and I want to bring your attention to another fabulous online software as a service business called Groove HQ, or a CRM software as a service provider, led by their CEO Alex Turnbull, who writes a wonderful blog, and there's all these links available at the end of this presentation for you. And in this blog that he's written, or is writing, over the last few years on his journey from zero to $500,000 revenue per month, his recurring revenue target, he talks about his epiphany a couple of years back, where he realized he just was not talking to his customers. And what he did, he cleared his diary for days, if not weeks on end, and literally picked up the phone to as many customers in his organization as he possibly could. And he couldn't believe the things that he learned. He got so much feedback, both good and bad. He took it on the chin. And from that moment on, he swore blind that was the way that his business would continue. And what he's done there, of course, is truly making that customer not just that one-off sale. In the software as a service business, the business that we're in, very, very easy to sell something and then never talk to a customer again and assume that they are happy until they leave. And this is something that we've been doing recently, and we're going to be continuing to do, to actually pick up the phone to customers and ask the question, how are things? What can we do for you? And we have specific examples where, do you know what? Yeah, a customer was starting to look around. There were a couple of features that we weren't able to offer, and they were starting to look at alternatives. And through that conversation, you can create that loyalty. You can create that relationship just by having that conversation with a customer. And of course, what does that do? It means repeat business, and it means referrals as well. So the more loyalty you create, the more referrals are going to come along. And of course, you're going to be keeping that customer as well. You'll find at the end of this presentation a link to a brilliant PDF from the world famous author Tom Peters. And this is one tip number 72 from his 163 ways to pursue excellence. And as you can see on the screen there, it's 11 a.m. Have you called a customer today? Really, there is nothing more important. And it's been a good lesson for me over the last few months. And we're going to absolutely be continuing to do that. So all helps to reduce that churn, to keep those customers. And there's a final point I want to make in this particular topic from 1916, believe it or not. This is a circular that appeared in the newspapers from LL Bean, who's just started to export their goods to the UK, in fact, as well, which is where Customer Thermometer is based. And I love this. I do not consider a sale complete until goods are worn out and the customer is still satisfied. So, they could sell you a jacket, but as far as they're concerned, even back then when they started the business, that jacket, that customer needs to remain a customer until that jacket is worn out or thrown away. And I think there's a lot to be learned from that. Number 2, the service recovery paradox is a wonderful concept which you may know of, but you may never have heard it explained in this particular way. Now, we're all consumers. We all experience problems with suppliers and whether it be retailers or service industry, wherever it may be. That's just what happens. Problems occur every day, and it's how you deal with those problems which sets the men from the boys. What's fascinating is actually you have more chance of retaining a customer, you have more opportunity to keep them loyal if a problem has occurred. And I want to show you a graph which explains this quite nicely. On the y-axis, as you can see, we have customer loyalty, and on the x-axis we have time. And really, that dotted line, I wouldn't like to explain why there's a curve to it. That could just be a straight line as far as I'm concerned with loyalty over time. But when things go wrong, you see that line taking a big dip as that loyalty starts to disappear. But if you deal with it well, if you deal with it in the correct fashion, you apologize, you offer the discount, you do everything in your power to make that customer happy again, you will find they become even more loyal. There is even more chance of them actually remaining with you because of the work you've done. Now, here at Customer Thermometer, we have experienced that. We've had a problem with the service about 3 years ago, which literally got overloaded by one of our customers. And we could have buried our heads in the sand. We didn't. We spent an entire weekend working incredibly hard to report on the issues, to find out what had happened, and to respond to that customer on the Monday morning. We were told on that Monday that they had never seen such a resolution report before from suppliers. They completely understand that things go wrong, but they were absolutely gobsmacked at how we responded to it. That day 3 years ago, our business grew up. We moved our server infrastructure, we changed our code, and we responded incredibly well to this particular customer. That customer is now still a customer with us, and our business has grown hugely with them, even in the recent months. And one of the reasons I believe is because of that problem which occurred all those years back. So we are very much on the top of that red line. It's well acknowledged in the industry that things go wrong. Here's a quote from British Airways. Customers do not expect things to be perfect. Okay, that's what you have to remember. But it's what you do about it which is what's important. So do bear that in mind. The next one I want to talk about, support is more important than sales. And here in the UK, there's a big supermarket war going on. I think it's fair to say lots and lots of competition from the price low, stack 'em high, right the way through to the high quality supermarkets. And on the screen right now is a picture from the Waitrose supermarket group, part of the John Lewis partnership. And they fascinate me because if you wander in and you ask where something is on the shelf, rather than being told that it's in aisle 3 next to the bacon, actually they will stop whatever they are doing and they will take you there. They will take you to that item, and then they will ask you if you need any more help or if you need anything else. So there's real buy-in from all employees. And if you actually go ahead and work on that front line with your customers, if you go the extra mile from a support point of view, which once again is not the sexy stuff, it's not the sales side of things, then you really start to learn what customers are looking for and what they're thinking. If you apply the same model to some of our online colleagues and partners, the likes of Zapier, the likes of Jason Fried's Basecamp, You will, if you read around the subject, you will see that every single one of their team rotates around their support environment. They get to find out what customers are saying on the front line. And why is this important? Because you can go back to your day job and actually relate to what customers are asking for. It's very easy to receive things from support and say, hey, this is what's going on. But when you actually experience it on the front line, it's a completely different thing. And it actually helps you get closer to customers, and it helps you do your job better to ensure that those customers remain with you. So be generous with your time. Go the extra mile on the support side of things. At Customer Thermometer, we have a Vice President of Magic, and that is his department. Jake runs the support department, and he will always go the extra mile. He'll write something cheeky. He'll put an interesting quote in the email. The fact that he is called Vice President of Magic, I think, says it all. And as a result of that, we have kept so many of our customers because of the over-the-top support which is being offered. And here's a public thank you to him. A final point on this one. The email, the corporate email black hole. Do not have an email form, a contact us form on your website and ignore it. It happens. It happens from the biggest companies down to the small. If you have a support and contact us form on your website, make sure you deal with it. Make sure you turn it around, because support is more important than sales. So my next point, treat every customer equally. Pretty Woman, of course, showing on the screen right now, and the quote you might be thinking of right now, big mistake. I think this is a really important one, and we can relate to this here at Customer Thermometer. We have customers and trialists signing up with personal email addresses, Gmail, and the like. And I'm sure in your organization, you'll have all sorts of people coming in to test you out, and just not revealing really their true business purpose and who they work for, which is absolutely fair enough. And it's very, very easy to treat those types of customers differently, to respond to them slower, to ignore them a little, compared to an obvious bigger business sign up with an obvious domain name attached to it. And we don't make that mistake, and we aim not to make that mistake. And we had an excellent example even recently with a Gmail address who we provided excellent support to. And I should say it's a real person, not just a Gmail address. We provided excellent support to, as ever, because everybody's treated equally. They turned out to be a trialist and then bought the service. And from that moment, they've actually turned into a larger corporate opportunity. And that happens all the time. And I suspect it happens in your organizations as well. So treat every customer equally. Not only may they continue to buy even if they're small, but actually it's about who they're connected to, who they work with, the referrals that might come from them as well, even if they remain a small customer for your particular business. So treat every customer equally. Do not make the same mistake that you see in that particular movie. My next point, I'd like to acknowledge one of my sporting heroes, a gentleman called Sir Clive Woodward, who coached England's rugby team to 2003 World Cup victory. I was fortunate enough to meet him a few days back now. I was able to shake his hand and we had a conversation, and I watched his presentation, which was wonderful, and I took this particular anecdote from it, so I'd like to acknowledge Sir Clive. I'll explain the picture in a moment. But the concept is be prepared. Okay, if you want to keep your customers, you've got to be prepared. Now, some people might call this risk analysis. I hate that word. I don't want to get bogged down in that kind of bureaucracy, I suppose. But what I do want to get you thinking about is the story that Sir Clive told, which is focusing on this picture here. And if you remember back to the 2004 Athens Olympics, this picture is depicting the men's synchronized diving final. Okay, 4 out of 5 dives had occurred, and China just had to step up and basically do a simple dive, and they would win the gold medal. They didn't, and as you can see here from this particular picture, it went horribly wrong. It went horribly wrong for the people who were second and third and fourth as well. They each stepped up to do their 5th dive and dived incredibly badly. The net result was the people that stepped up next, who were lying in 5th position originally, were the Greek team, and they went on to win that gold medal. Sir Clive talked about this in his speech, and he then went on to ask, why do you think it happened? And I'll tell you the reason why, and it's because of this guy. The competition was disrupted for about 2.5 hours as this particular person got up on the diving board and made a fool of himself. And during that period, the reason that these other teams just performed so badly with their final dive of the competition was because their concentration, their routine, both physical and mental, had been completely disrupted. And as a result, they were totally out of sorts when it came to the final dive of the competition. So Clive talked about this some more, and in his coaching of the England team to go ahead and win the World Cup back in 2003, part of his coaching routine, he would have a team meeting, and he would stop the meeting and he would suddenly throw in a bit of a curveball and ask people, okay, it's the 78th minute, you are on the 22-metre line, you're 4 points behind, and there is a line out, what would you do? And he would constantly interrupt meetings and throw in different scenarios so that people within the team could then figure out what they should be doing and talk it all through. And of course, when it comes to real life, they're then able to react because they've done the preparation. Okay, they've rehearsed. Now, this absolutely applies in business. We've all got situations where customers have left, but actually, if they'd been thought through in advance, if there were plans in place for if a trainer didn't turn up, if a computer system went down, if there was a data breach, what would you do? Okay, and I mean it from a customer communications point of view, literally picking up the phone. What is the process? And the more you think about that, the more you're prepared for that, the more likelihood there is that those customers will be retained. And really coming back to that service recovery concept as well, you do it well, they'll stay with you forever. So be prepared in your business. Do not make that mistake, and do not be disrupted by the tutu man.